Thank you for tuning in. This is Bianca Goolsby with Teaching for the Culture, and I have a guest, the Vice Chair of Hillsborough County School Board, Steve Cona. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Bianca. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. I just want to thank you so much for your leadership and everything that you've been doing in the school district, especially with your 3 p.m. updates. I really think that that just provides a sense of transparency and a little bit more behind the scenes of what's going on to keep people informed. So I really thank you for that.
Oh, you bet. And thank you for all of your advocacy. And you help us make this district better, and I appreciate the work that you do as well.
Well, that's awesome. So, look, I got a couple hot questions for you. I know that you're running for reelection
Mhm.
and people have questions, and I want to be able to provide the answers. So, my first question is, what do you think has been your biggest accomplishment as being a school board member?
Well, I have to tell you, I think the biggest accomplishment is a team accomplishment, and I want to give credit to my entire school board because I think we hired the best superintendent that this district could have hired, and um, many years have gone by since previous boards have had the option to look outside of Hillsborough County for a new leader. And, previous boards maybe took the path of least resistance. But I do think that this board showed real courage in going through a process and picking a leader that is going to, in my opinion, going to be a game changer for Hillsborough County. And I think people are going to look back in the next, very distant future and say that board showed courage and they picked an outstanding leader. And look where this school district is now. So this school district is a lot different than when you and I first had our first interview conversation. This district looks totally different. I've only been elected for a year and a half, and it's dramatically different than when I took over. So I think hiring Addison Davis as our new superintendent, that's one of my proudest accomplishments, but it's the accomplishment of the entire board because the board showed real courage of going outside of the norm. And obviously, Bianca, there was lots of pressure. There was lots of pressure for us to keep with the status quo and not make any dramatic changes. But this district, as you know, we need dramatic change, and I think we're going to get that. And I think we're going to look back and say that board made a wise decision, back in 2020. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I definitely love to hear about your personal accomplishments. And I just have to say, Addison Davis has been a star. People have reached out to me, district employees, and said, I love his responsiveness. I sent him an email and he promptly responded back, and that would have never happened any other time. So people are really loving his authenticness and him just being flexible and just out there. He's answering emails and he is trying to make a difference. So I appreciate you guys for taking a look outside to see what options do we have to really push the needle forward.
Yeah. And I think when you have just bringing outside eyes into a school district, look, the org charts just came out. There was tons of redundancy in our org chart, and none of that would have been exposed unless you get a superintendent and a different team in here to actually look at the whole district. So I'm excited about that. But personally, I'm excited about everything that there's two sides of the equation. There's the academic piece, and then there's the business piece. And those are two things that, quite honestly, they're entirely different, right? Like creating an IB program in Alonzo is entirely different than looking at crunching numbers in a school budget, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to balance that, and the only way that you can balance that successfully, I believe, is to get your tail into schools. Like when I got elected, I made it a personal mission to go to every single one of our schools. I want to form relationships with the principals, with the APs, with the teachers in those schools, because how can I move the work if I'm not getting my hands dirty too and getting and actually seeing what's going on in those schools? So we saw a need for the Alonzo IB program. I got that done within 4 months of being a school board member. Awesome. That was something that, hadn't happened. And we just got all the numbers, and, people said, you're only catering to a certain echelon of students when you put an IB program. That's not true. This Alonzo IB program is going to be 50% Hispanic. And it just proves that if you put programs in the neighborhoods that need those programs, instead of moving them all over the place where they can't have access to them, that these programs will grow, they will be diverse. And I couldn't be more excited for what's going on in Alonzo. And that's going to be in a very short period of time, one of the, it's already a premier high school, but it's going to be probably one of the premier high schools in the state of Florida. So I'm excited about that.
And thank you so much for the work that you are doing at Alonzo. I have heard some amazing things, and I've seen you at the school. And so thank you for the work that you do. And you said a very key point about, sometimes you have to get your hands dirty. And I think a lot of people, as far as when they evaluate candidates, they don't actually know the role and they don't know the full picture of what your duties and expectations are. And at the end of the day, your goal is policy. That's
Yeah.
your job, but you are actually at the schools. I seen that you were at Lato yesterday and just giving back and just helping the teachers. So that is a really big accomplishment. And like I said, I just give all credit where credit is due, and I appreciate everything that you do.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to create policy if you don't spend your time with the people who the policy affects. And I think that's been my biggest thing. And I haven't. My whole mission is, let's look at policies that are hurting kids that we've had on the books for 50, 60 years, and let's get them out. Because if they're hurting kids and there's a cost to implement some of these policies, let's get them out. So I've spent my time and attention on focusing on, tell me what policies are in the way of serving kids, and let's get them out of the way. Because we can create policies all day, but unless people are properly implementing those policies, they're just words on a piece of paper.
You're right. You're right. So your 3 p.m. updates have been so vital, and especially during this crisis. And like I said, I have to go back and say that the 3 p.m. updates is something very new and innovative. We've never seen anything before of school board members being on live, constantly giving updates, answering questions to the community and constituents. So I want to know, how and why did you get that started?
So I will tell you, it really came out of necessity during this pandemic. When all of this started to go down, I could tell you that all school board members, all of our phones were getting blown up. Our phones were getting blown up. Neighbors are knocking on our door, asking what's going on in our school districts. And, so I figured, why not just go online and let me just brief everyone on what I know at that particular moment in time, and how can I help? How can I answer questions? How can I create a dialogue with our families and our teachers and our students? And how can we open up the lines of communication? Because I think it's so hard sometimes for people to, get access to information during this time. Even though information is everywhere, it's kind of hard to search and go look for that information. So, I just started at 3 p.m. I haven't stopped. Obviously, once summer starts, we might have to do a weekly update. But, the situation has been very fluid. There's been changes every single day to what we're doing. So just being able to provide an opportunity for people to ask me questions, and then for me to answer the questions I've been asked, I think it's been great. I'm happy to do it, and I hope people find it useful and helpful.
Yeah, and like I said, I definitely appreciate you for doing that, and it just gives a whole level of transparency, and allows people to kind of get play-by-play updates. This is a new situation. We've never been here before, so just kind of working together as a team to best support as much people as we can.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what do you think that this pandemic has really exposed in regards to education?
Well, you mentioned it today in a lot of your calls. Is the digital divide is severe in our school district. We've almost given out 40,000 laptops. We have more laptops to give out, but really, even giving out those laptops, you still have obviously a technology divide with access to internet and cable and everything else. So this is not an ideal situation. I think we all can agree that we have to do e-learning right now. We're forced to do it, but I don't think anything replaces a teacher with a student in a classroom. And the sooner that we can get back to that, I think we're going to be in a much better situation. But what I think it has done is, having a new superintendent come in, it has exposed kind of our weaknesses. Technology has been a big weakness. We've had a digital divide inside of our school district, and we have to fix that. And I think the new org chart calls for a chief technology officer. I couldn't bless that more. And I think we're going to bring in someone who has the expertise and the vision to really hone in on what's going to be best for our students. And I'm excited about that. We have to fix it. But I do think the opportunity is now we actually have another means that we can use for all of our students. So if we have students who are behind in work, they can take laptops home. We know how to do the e-learning piece. They can continue the learning at home. So there has been some benefits, but I think we have a long way to go. And but we still have to get back in the classroom. Bianca, there's no replacing a teacher and a student in the classroom learning. It's the best way. And but I think this new e-learning is going to be a value add for later on as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that digital divide is so real. And you're right. I've talked about it several times, even as my experience as an educator in Hillsborough County. We witnessed disparities with, different Wi-Fi networks working, and certain schools had, different access to faster internet in certain zip codes. And I mean, the district can't fix all problems, but being aware of it and intentional to fix it is a start. So I definitely appreciate the awareness to that. And I am excited for whoever takes that position to really be intentional with the programs that we have for our kids and making sure that there is equity in that. Because even when I was doing Microsoft certifications, some of the language that was communicated were not on the grade level of our students coming in. And that was because, some of our students in certain zip codes, they are behind 2 to 3 grade levels. So it made it even difficult for them to even excel in CTE type programs. So that's awesome that you guys are being intentional with that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So my next question, are there any updates from the Florida Department of Education regarding reopening schools that you're able to share?
I don't have any right now, but I do know that there is some, June 15th is kind of the timeline. We've had to have plans in place for everything that we want to try to accomplish. So the superintendent is working on every single scenario, every single plan. And once the DOL says we can go back to schools, once the CDC gives us those guidelines, we will make those adjustments, because I do think we need to have summer VPK. We do need to have kids in schools in front of teachers as soon as possible. But we can't do that until we get guidance from the Florida Department of Education, CDC. So we're being patient, but I will tell you that all the plans are developed, and then we will just pull out which plan is necessary. So right now, the plan that we pulled out was the virtual summer plan, because that's what we have available to us right now.
Well, thank you so much for those updates. And I think the reason why I asked you that question is to kind of lead up to the next question. And I know that, school might not be open anytime soon. You have Howard University saying after Thanksgiving, you have different school districts that are outside of the state of Florida that are doing something completely different. And so how can parents support their children right now during this time, especially with the educational gap?
Yeah, we put a lot on our parents and our caregivers. And my biggest suggestion to you, and this is coming from a lot of educators and a lot of teachers that I've talked to, is get books in your kids' hands and make them read. Make them read, make them read, make them read. It is the most important skill that they can actually learn. So if your child has downtime, put a book in their hand, read to them. Make them write. Reading, writing, and math. Those are the 3 things that I've heard from many teachers. Make them do worksheets. Make them do math online. Make it fun. Make them cook and use formulas and all sorts of measurements and calculations. Just get them involved and keep them learning in different ways. But I do think you have to get them to continue to read, because reading is it's a game changer. And I think the more that you put materials in their hands that they enjoy to look at, and don't just give them books that they enjoy to read. And once they enjoy that part of it, they'll enjoy reading the stuff that's a little bit more difficult and hard. But get them inspired and get them reading. I think that's the best thing that parents can do right now for their students.
Yeah, and we definitely have shown and seen with the data that there is a literacy crisis. When I reviewed the data for the 3rd grade babies that just tested for the FSA, 73% of them were not proficient in reading. So that is a very alarming number. And so there needs to be some intentionality with reading. And I did post a video to review Clever, to review some of the different tools that kids do have access to during the summer and during this time, that they're able to go and see those different resources. So I'll definitely share that again, so that way parents can see the different options that the district pays for that's free for them to use to read, like Mayan and Khan
Right.
Academy and those type of tools. So thank you for sharing with that.
Mhm.
And then my last question for you are, what are some initiatives that you would like to push during your next term?
Lots of things. So from an academic side, I want to expand our dual language programs. What we've seen is our dual language programs, our kids are accelerating at dramatic rates. So what our dual language programs are, for people who don't know, is students start in kindergarten with half of the day learning in English and half of the day learning in Spanish, and we continue that throughout their grade level, and they become bilingual very, very quickly. But what we are seeing is that the students that are in those dual language programs, their test scores are through the roof, higher than other students that are taking normal classes. So I'm excited that there's going to be more dual enrollment opportunities in the district. Melissa Morgado with our school district is working really hard to expand that. And I think keeping pushing those dual language programs is something that was started prior to me getting here, but expanding these programs and seeing that there's real data behind the fact that teaching these kids a second language starting in kindergarten and going throughout their elementary education is really making great strides. And I'm excited about that. So we're going to roll out some more dual enrollment. I know in my district, I think Canella and Deer Park are going to have some dual enrollment options coming up. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see more foreign language. I'd like to see, in getting back to, I'd like to see more enhanced learning in middle schools, more CTE courses in our middle schools. I'd love to see, our middle school students a lot more engaged in stuff that they enjoy, because we have our biggest struggle, and is middle school, Bianca. Middle school kids are, they're finding themselves. We need to give them as many interesting and cool things to learn in middle school to really engage their learning, because right now they're kind of just going through the motions. But I think if we focus on middle school engagement, I think that's going to be hugely important for them. And I think we lose most of our kids in the middle school area, and we need to make sure that we get them back and make parents feel comfortable sending their kids to our middle schools. So I'd like to make sure that we focus a lot more attention on middle school programming, along with dual language, and a lot more of our CTE programs in high school. CTE is a big thing for me, being in the construction industry. I want to make sure that we are preparing students for not only college but careers. The things that are happening at Middleton, for example, my foundation has put in an extra $15,000 to grow that program. We have a new teacher coming in. We want to give them more supplies, but kids are coming out of those programs getting jobs that are paying $15+ an hour. They're learning. They're becoming, master electricians, master carpenters, and and they're starting their future off bright. So we need to invest more in those programs as well.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know that you do a lot for the school district, and for your business, and making sure that everyone stays afloat. So just thank you so much for having this time. Is there any other updates or anything that you want to share?
No, look, I just want, I'm honored to do this work. This has been some of the most rewarding work because the results are immediate. When you make a change at a school, when you give to schools and you get your hands dirty in the work, you accomplish amazing things. And I would love to make sure that I continue this work with our new superintendent and our school board. We are getting to a point now where we have to really move the needle, especially in our DNF schools. There's no place in Hillsborough County for a D or an F school. That's going to be our challenge. I think every single board member is going to work to ensure that we eliminate our DNF schools, and quite frankly, our C schools as well. We have to be intentional, just like you say all the time. We have to be intentional, and we have to ensure that it's not tolerated. These types of systemic failures in our system, we need to fix it, and you need drastic, innovative ideas to do that. And you're going to need board members who are focused on doing that work. And we have a lot of work to do. This is not. I do not feel fulfilled yet as a school board member that my job is done until we get all of these DNF schools off the table. So that's going to be one of my main missions, as well as all of my board members, because we've all talked about it. We have a new superintendent, new leadership coming in. We need to work with those leaders to ensure that we are making the changes necessary to fix those failures in our system, because it's not, it shouldn't be tolerated, and I don't think it's going to be tolerated. And we're going to work really hard to ensure that we have no more DNF schools.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing that to the forefront. We have 29 of them, and every child deserves a school. And we need to work together to make sure that we make that happen. So thank you so much for making that a key focus. And that is all about the equity work that I'm talking about. The conversations needs to take place, because there are several schools that have been underperforming for several years that should have been taken over by the Florida Department of Education by now. But now is an opportunity to make sure that it's right and that it doesn't turn into a charter school, that we can actually do the work, is publicly funded, and that we can do everything that we can for our kids where they're at. So thank you so much for taking time to being here with me. And until next time, folks, thank y'all for tuning in to Teaching for the Culture, and I'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, Bianca.